There's a lot of ways to use your sewing skills, but at first, no one is interested in your ideas. What you're facing is decades, if not millennia, of sewists and tailors being a part of a service industry. The point is not necessarily to make the best art piece. You are in a service industry, which is not the goal of many of us who actually want to be designers. Part of my pause after graduation was really getting into what I wanted to do, not necessarily what other people wanted me to do. I wanted to make sure that I was able to sustain myself paying my bills, making sure I was taking care of all of my responsibilities without really worrying so much about the next step. If you know how to sew, people are going to ask for how useful you can be for them, not necessarily your ideas. It takes a lot of time to break the mold and get people to understand that your sewing may be different than the person down the street. If your goal is not to hem and fix prom dresses, it takes time to get there. So while you're working towards the goal of creative freedom or design freedom, or really just sewing things you actually like to do, there's a lot of benefits to starting off in a service-oriented role. A lot of my first projects were hems and some custom things here and there, but even custom work isn't necessarily design work. For that reason, I spent years being an alterationist and a sewist, but not necessarily a fashion designer like I had dreamed of being. But in that time, I was able to pick up so many skills that I wouldn't otherwise understand. The reality of corporate and the reality of not going into corporate are very similar in that you're probably not going to be doing what you want to do early on. If you end up in a fashion corporate job, you're going to be starting out pretty low on the totem pole. You may not be doing anything with your sewing skills. It'll be conversations around making sure that tech packs are in alignment, keeping up with your Excel spreadsheets, and making sure everything is just so. You might not even touch Adobe Illustrator for a few years into your role. Similarly, for those outside of the industry, you might start off doing alterations on the side. You might have a full-time job teaching or in real estate. It just depends on what you're interested in and what your area actually offers. In my case, I did a lot of customer service jobs and eventually moved into marketing. What it taught me is that the designers are really at the precipice of making sure that whatever garments they make can be functional and actually uplift people if they're designed with the people in mind. In alterations, you can end up meeting a ton of people a week, processing multiple garments, and it can be very technical, very straightforward. But you can also take a turn and go into custom alterations or luxury alterations like I did. You actually have the power to completely transform someone's wardrobe from a bunch of stuff that makes them feel terrible to a bunch of stuff that actually is wearable and makes them feel confident. You could find a petite person who needs her pants hemmed every year. You could find a person with a very strong back, but a very slim waist who needs her stuff tailored a little better. These are the people that you want to zoom in on because these are people who will become your biggest champions when you do start building clothes because they know you can fit them. Eventually, whenever you make a collection, these people will be excited to purchase from you. That's my goal anyway. When you're the designer, the sewist, the customer service agent, you are learning all the skills that you will need to be successful in a full-scale business where you actually have employees to do things for you. And you don't have to email people back and answer phone calls about your pricing. So when you learn all these skills little by little, you can really set yourself up to get ready to do that push because you have the confidence. You have a full-time job. You have this side business where you're also speaking with people on a regular basis. You're getting in front of people and showing your skills on a technical side. Now we have to prove ourselves on the creative side. There's no right answer. If you have to start out by altering someone's outfits and over time you build up the credibility to make an actual dress, then people will trust you more with their garments over time. You may get to build some really cool options for local celebrities, local newscasters even, and then eventually build your way up and get the confidence to build the collection that you want. When I choose projects these days, it's more so how much time do I have? Is it interesting? Is it unique? Will it teach me something new? Those are all the things I look for. Early on, I was just like, will it pay my bills? Can I afford to do this while also working my full time job? The answer was always yes back then. Now I can be a little more choosy with what I do. That's how I kept sewing and learning, even though it wasn't that glamorous. If you can get over the obstacle of being useful, you can actually jump into being visionary if you're strategic. Your alterations and these smaller jobs can fund your creativity. The job that's a little longer in the evening could give you a lot of free time during the day to meet people, get out there, get involved in your artist community, or start one if you don't have one. The best part about alterations and staying busy with custom work is that you don't have to be inspired. You just have to work. So, right out the gate, I would not suggest sewing people's pants for $10 a pop. They can go to a dry cleaner for that. If you want to be known for business mindedness and strategy, you need to be making money, right? We'll talk more about the strategy component and learning how to price yourself and making sure that you're building out quotes appropriately and taking on clients that you really should. But for today, I'm going to clean my room and do a little math. See you tomorrow.